He was broke at 26, behind on rent, no education, no prospects, no one who believed he would amount to anything, including himself. Then someone handed him a book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He didn't just read it. He didn't skim it. He didn't put it on a shelf and tell himself he'd get back to it someday. He read it every single day. He read it in the morning before the sun came up. He read it at night when the world went quiet. He read it so many times that the pages became soft and the spine gave way. He didn't stop when he understood it. It kept going because he knew, somewhere deep inside him, that understanding something once was not the same as owning it. That man was Bob Proctor. Within a few years, that broke, uneducated young man was running a successful cleaning business, earning more money than he had ever imagined possible. He didn't get there through luck. He didn't get there because someone opened a door for him. He got there because he burned an idea into his subconscious mind through sheer, relentless, unapologetic repetition. And it changed everything. Bob Proctor would go on to spend over 60 years studying the human mind, the laws of the universe, and the science of success. He coached presidents, billionaires, and millions of ordinary people from every corner of the world. And through all of it, one principle remained at the very heart of his teachings. Repetition is not a technique. It is the path. If you are ready to understand why the most successful people on earth keep returning to the same ideas, the same affirmations, the same disciplines, day after day, year after year, this video is for you. Welcome to the teachings of Bob Proctor. Today, we are going to explore one of the most powerful and most misunderstood principles in the entire philosophy of personal development. It is a principle so simple that most people dismiss it. It is so obvious that most people overlook it. And it is so profound that every master who has ever walked this earth has relied upon it. That principle is repetition. In a world obsessed with novelty, with the next hack, the next shortcut, the next system that promises to change your life in 30 days, the idea of returning to the same lesson, the same idea, the same affirmation, day after day, sounds almost primitive. It sounds boring. It sounds like something a person does when they don't have anything better to do. But Bob Proctor understood something that the vast majority of people never come to grips with. The human mind does not change through exposure. It changes through saturation. There is a world of difference between hearing an idea and living an idea. And the only bridge between the two is repetition. The subconscious mind, as Bob taught for decades, does not respond to logic. It does not respond to intention. It does not respond to a single, powerful moment of insight. It responds to impression. An impression is built by frequency, emotion, and time. In other words, it is built through repetition. This is not a new discovery. It is not Bob Proctor's invention. William James, the father of American psychology, wrote about it in the 1800s. The ancient Stoic philosophers practiced it. Every spiritual tradition in human history has understood that truth must be rehearsed to become real in a person's life. What Bob Proctor did was take this ageless principle and make it practical, accessible, and undeniable for the modern mind. In this video, we are going to walk through 7 powerful chapters. 7 dimensions of the principle of repetition drawn from Bob's teachings, his books, his seminars, and the thousands of hours he spent on stages around the world, pouring everything he had into the people in front of him. By the end of this video, you will not just understand why repetition works. You will feel compelled to use it. You will see it not as a discipline, but as a gift, the greatest gift you can give your own mind. Let's begin. Bob Proctor spent 60 years reminding audiences of something that most people spend their entire lives never learning. There are 2 distinct parts of the human mind, and they operate by completely different rules. The conscious mind is the seat of logic, reason, and willpower. But the subconscious mind is where your behavior, your habits, your self-image, and your results truly live. The conscious mind can receive an idea in an instant. You can hear something profound, nod your head, and feel genuinely moved by it. But that moment of recognition is not the same as transformation. The conscious mind received the signal. the subconscious mind barely noticed. Think of the subconscious mind as a garden. Ideas are seeds. You do not plant a seed once and walk away expecting it to become a forest by morning. You plant it, water it, return to it, tend to it, day after day, until the roots go deep and the growth becomes inevitable. Bob often said that the subconscious mind is programmed by the time most people are 7 or 8 years old. By that age, your core beliefs about who you are, what you deserve, and what is possible for you are already installed. Not by your choice, but by repetition. You heard the same messages often enough that they became your reality. Here is the most important implication of that truth. If the beliefs that are running your life right now were installed through repetition, they can only be changed through repetition. There is no other door. There is no shortcut through the subconscious. This is why people attend motivational seminars, feel incredible for 3 days, and then return to the same patterns within a week. The conscious mind was inspired, but the subconscious mind was not reprogrammed. The old recording kept playing. Bob drew on the work of Dr. Thurman Fleet, the founder of concept therapy, who used a simple diagram, a circle divided into 2 halves, to represent the conscious and subconscious mind. This model became one of the central tools of Bob's teaching because it made the invisible visible. It helped people see why willpower alone is never enough. The conscious mind can choose a new direction, but it is the subconscious mind that actually moves the body. If the subconscious has not received the new instruction clearly and repeatedly, it will default to its old programming every single time, especially under stress. This is not a flaw in human design. It is actually a form of efficiency. The subconscious mind automates what it has been trained to do so that the conscious mind is free to think. The problem arises only when what it has been trained to do no longer serves the life you want to create. The solution, Bob always returned to, is not to fight the subconscious mind. It is to feed it consistently, deliberately, emotionally, and repeatedly with new ideas you wanted to internalize until they become as natural and automatic as the old ones. That is the work, and it begins with repetition. One of the most painful patterns Bob Proctor observed in his decades of coaching was this. People would commit to a new idea, work with it faithfully for a short time, feel no immediate results, and then conclude that it simply didn't work. They quit right before the transformation was about to break through. Understanding why this happens requires understanding the nature of paradigm shifts. A paradigm, as Bob defined it, is a multitude of habits fixed in the subconscious mind. It is the mental program that controls your perception, your behavior, and your results. And paradigms do not shift gradually. They shift suddenly, after a prolonged period of invisible internal work. Bob used to compare it to boiling water. You apply heat. The water sits there, seemingly unchanged. Minutes pass. Nothing appears to be happening. And then, all at once, it boils. The transformation was occurring the entire time, below the surface, in ways you could not see. The person who quits at the 2-minute mark will never see the boil. This is why persistence and repetition is not optional. It is the entire mechanism. The repetition you do on the days when you feel no momentum, no inspiration, and no evidence of change. Those are the most important days. Those are the days the roots go deepest. There is a concept in neuroscience called myelination, the process by which nerve pathways are coated in a fatty sheath that makes signal transmission faster and more automatic. Every time you repeat a thought, a belief, or a behavior, more myelin is laid down. The pathway becomes stronger, smoother, and more dominant. But this process takes time. It cannot be rushed. Bob did not use the language of neuroscience. He rarely did. He spoke in terms of vibration, paradigm, and universal law. But the scientific principle beneath his words was the same. Repetition physically rewires the brain. It is not metaphor. It is biology. Another reason people quit is that they are looking for the wrong signal. They expect to feel different immediately. They expect external circumstances to shift right away. But the first place the shift occurs is internal, in the quality of your dominant thoughts, in the emotional tone of your inner world, in the way you begin to see possibilities you couldn't see before. Bob taught that the results you see in your life are always a reflection of the image held in your subconscious mind. If you change the image through repetition, the results must change. This is not wishful thinking. It is the law of correspondence, one of the foundational laws of the universe as Bob understood them. The great tragedy is not failure. The great tragedy, as Bob saw it, was quitting, because the very fact that a person was struggling, but that the old paradigm was pushing back hard, was often evidence that the new programming was beginning to take hold. Resistance is not a sign to stop. It is a sign to continue. If you are currently working with an affirmation, a vision, a goal, or a new belief, and you have not yet seen the results you are working toward, do not stop. The water is heating. Stay at the stove. The boil is coming. Bob Proctor was emphatic about something that separates effective repetition from empty ritual: emotion. Repeating words without feeling is like signing a check without ink. The form is there. The intention may be there, but nothing transfers. The subconscious mind, Bob explained, is not impressed by language. It responds to feeling. It responds to the emotional vibration carried in a thought. This is why you can repeat an affirmation 1,000 times in a flat, detached tone and barely move the needle, while one moment of genuine, emotionally charged belief can shift something deep. This understanding comes from the work of many thinkers Bob studied, including Neville Goddard, who taught that the secret to effective mental work was to feel the wish fulfilled, not to think about it from the outside as something you want, but to step inside the feeling of already having it, as if it were already real. Bob used to say that thoughts are the language of the mind and feelings are the language of the body. For a new belief to truly take root in the subconscious, both must speak the same message at the same time. The thought and the feeling must align. That alignment is what creates the charge that makes repetition transformative. This is why visualization, done correctly, is so powerful. It is not merely a mental exercise. When you vividly imagine living your goal, when you see it, feel it, taste it, inhabit it, your nervous system responds as if it is real. The subconscious mind cannot fully distinguish between a vivid imagined experience and an actual one. That is the door. Bob recommended that people do their repetition work, their affirmations, their visualization, their study of key ideas in a state of elevated emotion. Gratitude was his favorite entry point. Entering a state of deep gratitude before your mental work raises your vibration and opens the subconscious to receive new programming far more readily. Conversely, repeating affirmations of abundance while feeling desperate and fearful is counterproductive. You are sending a contradictory message. The subconscious receives the feeling beneath the words, not just the words themselves. Fear of lack and affirmations of abundance cancel each other out. The emotion always wins. This is why Bob was never simply teaching people to think positive thoughts. He was teaching them to feel true things, to align their emotional state with the reality they intended to create, rather than with the circumstances they were observing. That is a profound and demanding discipline. It requires practice. It requires repetition. Over time, as the repetition continues with genuine emotional engagement, something shifts permanently. The new feeling stops being something you have to artificially manufacture. It begins to arise naturally because the subconscious has accepted the new program and starts generating the emotions that match it spontaneously. The practice becomes the identity. The invitation, then, is not simply to repeat words. It is to repeat experiences, imagined, emotionally real, felt from the inside experiences of the person you are becoming and the life you are creating. Totes enoug, with enough genuine feeling. And the universe will have no choice but to rearrange itself around the image you have impressed upon your deeper mind. One of the most frequently asked questions Bob Proctor ever received was some variation of this. Bob, how many times have you read Think and Grow Rich? His answer never failed to stop people in their tracks. Hundreds of times, not dozens, hundreds, and he wasn't finished to the logical mind. This question reveals the core misunderstanding that keeps most people stuck at the surface of their own potential. Reading a book once gives you the ideas. Reading it 100 times gives you the owner. The information moves from something you know intellectually to something that becomes part of the operating system of your mind. There is a difference between knowing that fire is hot and having been burned. Repetition creates the equivalent of the burn. Bob was not unique in this approach. Hundreds. Why would an intelligent person read the same book again and again? Once you understand the content, haven't you extracted everything it has to offer? Throughout history, the greatest thinkers, leaders, and creators have returned obsessively to the same few sources. Seneca read the Stoics daily. Abraham Lincoln read the Bible and Shakespeare so many times he could recite vast portions by heart. Winston Churchill rehearsed and repeated his own speeches to himself until they became the living expression of his conviction. There is also something remarkable that happens when you read the same material at different points in your life. You are not the same reader. Your awareness has expanded, your experiences have changed, and the text reveals new layers it could not have shown you before. A book read at 25 will say something different at 35, and something different again at 50. The words don't change. You do. Bob encouraged his students to identify 3 to 5 books that deeply resonated with their vision and their growth, and to make those books their daily companions. Not to read them once and move to the next. To return to them. To underline. To question. To argue with the author. To sit with a single paragraph for 20 minutes until it gives up everything it contains. This practice builds what Bob called a paradigm of excellence, a mental framework shaped by the repeated encounter with great ideas, just as a musician internalizes scales through daily practice until music becomes effortless. A person who returns daily to the principles of success eventually thinks from those principles automatically. There is also a disciplined aspect to this practice that cannot be overstated. Returning to the same material requires you to resist the seduction of novelty. Our culture is addicted to new information. We confuse information consumption with growth. Bob made the distinction clearly. Consuming more information is not the same as transforming your mind. Depth always outperforms breadth when it comes to the subconscious. Pick up your most important book tonight. Don't read it to finish it. Read it to be changed by it. Read one chapter, read it again. Write down 3 ideas that strike you most powerfully. Return to it. Bob Proctor turned a dog-eared copy of Think and Grow Rich into a life of extraordinary purpose, impact, and abundance. He didn't do it by finding better books. He did it by going deeper into the one that had already cracked him open. The treasure was never in the next book. The treasure was in the depth of return. Tomorrow, let it work on you the way water works on stone, not through force, but through frequency. Few practices in personal development have been more praised and more misunderstood than affirmations. To the skeptic, they're wishful thinking. A grown adult standing in front of a mirror saying things that aren't true. Hope in reality will bend to accommodate the illusion. Bob Proctor had a simple answer to that skepticism. You are already affirming things every day. The question is whether you are affirming what you want or what you fear. Every thought you repeat internally is an affirmation. Every time you tell yourself that you're not good enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough, that is an affirmation. And the subconscious mind has been running those programs for decades. You didn't build them in a day, and you will not dismantle them in a day. But you can begin right now. Bob defined an affirmation as a statement of truth about who you are choosing to become, spoken with authority, conviction, and repetition until the subconscious mind accepts it as fact. Notice the phrase, choosing to become. You do not need to currently believe the affirmation. You need to be willing to repeat it until you do. This is a critical distinction. The affirmation is not a description of your current reality. It is a declaration of your intended reality, spoken in the present tense, as if it is already so. I am confident. I attract abundance easily and effortlessly. I am worthy of extraordinary success. These statements may feel uncomfortable at first. Good discomfort is the feeling of the old paradigm being challenged. Bob instructed his students to write their affirmations down, not type them, but handwrite them. The physical act of writing engages a different neural pathway than typing and reinforces the message being sent to the subconscious with greater intensity. He suggested writing the same affirmation multiple times in a single sitting and reading it aloud with feeling. The spoken word adds yet another dimension to the process. When you hear your own voice making a declaration, the auditory system reinforces what the visual system has received. You are now programming through multiple channels simultaneously. This is why Bob always encouraged people to read their goals and affirmations out loud, rather than silently. There is also wisdom in the timing of affirmation practice. The moments just before falling asleep and just after waking are the times when the conscious mind is most relaxed and the gateway to the subconscious is most open. These are the moments when repetition carries the greatest charge. Bob advised his students to make their affirmation practice the last thing they did before sleep and the first thing they did upon waking. Over time, and this is the promise and the test, the affirmation begins to feel true. Not as a lie you have convinced yourself to believe, but as a recognition of something that has genuinely shifted in your inner world. The body starts to respond differently. The behaviors start to change. The opportunities you notice start to align with the new belief. This is not magic. It is the law of the mind working exactly as it was designed. If you have tried affirmations before and felt they didn't work, Bob would ask you one question. Did you stay with them long enough, consistently enough, and emotionally enough for the subconscious to accept them? Most people give affirmations 3 days and declare them ineffective. The average paradigm has been in place for 20 or 30 years. A 3-day challenge is not a fair contest. Choose one affirmation today. Make it bold. Make it feel slightly uncomfortable. Make it true for the person you are choosing to become. Write it out 10 times. Say it out loud with everything you have. Return to it tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. Do not stop until it stops feeling like an affirmation and starts feeling like a memory of the future you are already living. Bob Proctor was not a man of many complicated systems. He was a man of profound simplicities repeated without apology, without interruption, and without variation. The architecture of his daily life was built on habits so consistent and so deliberate that they amounted to a kind of living prayer, a continuous, embodied repetition of the principles he had spent a lifetime teaching. He studied every morning, without exception, not when he felt inspired, not when circumstances were convenient. Every morning, he would sit with his books, his notes, and his thoughts, and he would pour himself into the ideas that had made his life what it was. This was not something he did on the days he had extra time. It was the foundation everything else was built on top of. Bob understood what modern psychology has confirmed. Willpower is finite. It depletes with use. If you rely on motivation or inspiration to do your mental work, you will eventually, inevitably, find a day when neither shows up. And on that day, if there is no habit in place, the work doesn't get done. One missed day becomes two. Two becomes a week. The thread is broken. Habit removes the negotiation. When your morning study is as automatic as brushing your teeth, you don't lie in bed asking yourself whether you feel like doing it. You simply do it the same way you always do it, because that is who you are now. The identity precedes the motivation. The discipline creates the identity. Bob often spoke about the connection between your daily habits and your results. He would point out that most people are producing results they don't want while defending habits that produce them. They want different outcomes, but they are not willing to install different daily disciplines. They want the harvest, but they are not willing to change what they plant. One of the most powerful daily habits Bob recommended was a consistent review of your goals. Written, clearly stated, emotionally charged goals, read aloud every single day. Not because reading them once does nothing, but because reading them every day keeps them alive in the conscious mind, which keeps them being repeatedly impressed upon the subconscious, which keeps the mind scanning for aligned opportunities and resources. He also spoke frequently about the power of meditation and mental stillness, creating quiet in the mind so that the deeper intelligence of the universe can communicate through it. This, too, is a practice built on repetition. 5 minutes of stillness is not the goal. A lifetime of daily return to stillness is the goal. The depth of the well is proportional to how many times you have returned to dig. Every great person Bob ever studied, every teacher, every leader, every artist, every entrepreneur he considered truly extraordinary, shared one thing: Their days were structured around non-negotiable daily practices. Not occasional practices, daily ones. The compounding effect of consistent daily habits, applied to mental development over years and decades, is virtually unlimited. The challenge for most people is not that they don't know what habits would change their lives. The challenge is that they have not yet made those habits non-negotiable. They treat their mental development as optional. They fit it in when there is time, which means they fit it in almost never, because there is never extra time. You must carve the time out. You must protect it the way you would protect your most important meeting. Start with 20 minutes. 20 minutes of focused, consistent, daily repetition of your most important ideas, your goals, your affirmations, your key readings will, over the course of a year, produce a result that would astonish the person you are today. The magic is not in the 20 minutes. The magic is in the daily. Show up every day, and the compound interest of the mind will take care of the rest. There is a dimension of repetition that goes beyond reading, affirmation, and habit. A level that Bob Proctor explored with particular depth in the later years of his teaching. It is the practice of returning, obey, not to an answer, but to a question, living inside a powerful question until the universe has no choice but to answer it through your life. Bob was a student of the Socratic method, not by formal study, but by instinct and observation. He understood that a well-formed question opens the mind in a way that a statement never can. A statement closes the door. A question leaves it open, and an open mind is a mind that is capable of receiving new ideas, new connections, and new levels of understanding. The question Bob returned to most in his own life was one of extraordinary simplicity. How can I serve more people? Not, how can I make more money? Not, how can I become more successful? But how can I serve more people? That Castian lived in daily for decades, produced a life of impact that touched millions of human beings on every inhabited continent on Earth. The power of a question lies in the way the subconscious responds to it. The subconscious mind, Bob explained, is a servo mechanism. It is a goal-seeking apparatus. Give it a clear question and it will not rest until it finds an answer. The answers may come as ideas, insights, coincidences, chance meetings, or sudden inspirations, but they will come because a question left open in the mind is a command the subconscious mind is compelled to fulfill. Napoleon Hill called this the mastermind, the activation of a deeper creative intelligence through focused intention. Bob understood it as the infinite intelligence that underlies all life, responding to the quality of the questions and images held in a prepared mind. Whatever the language, the principle is the same. Ask boldly, ask consistently, ask repeatedly, and remain open to the answers. Living in a question also keeps you in a state of intellectual humility, an awareness that you have not yet arrived, that there is always more to understand, always a deeper layer to explore. This is the orientation of the eternal student, and it is the orientation Bob maintained until the very last days of his life. He never stopped asking. He never stopped learning. He never decided he had figured it all out. This is one of the most profound lessons of his legacy. Mastery is not the end of the journey. It is the deepening of the journey. The master returns to the same principles not because they have not yet understood them, but because each return reveals something the previous visit could not. The 10th reading is not the same as the first. The 1000th morning practice is not the same as the 100th. The depth is infinite. Bob also taught that the questions you carry determine the quality of your life. If you walk through your days asking, why does this always happen to me? Your subconscious will find evidence to support that narrative. But if you replace it with, what can I learn from this? Or how is this serving my growth? The subconscious will go to work finding those answers instead. The question is the lens. Repetition of the question grinds the lens to its final precision. Choose your questions with the same care you choose your goals and your affirmations. Write them down. Return to them every morning. Let them live in the background of your mind as you move through your days. Don't force the answers. Trust the process. The creative intelligence that runs this universe is far more resourceful than your conscious mind, and it is always listening for the questions you are sincerely and repeatedly asking. Bob Proctor did not just teach principles. Leave it. Tim. He embodied the very idea of repetition in every dimension of his existence. In his reading, his speaking, his thinking, his questioning, and his becoming. He was proof, walking and breathing and standing on stages around the world, that a person of any background, any age, and any circumstance can transform their life completely if they are willing to return again and again to the few great truths that have the power to set them free. We have traveled today through 7 dimensions of one of the most powerful principles in the philosophy of success. We have explored how the subconscious mind works, why most people quit before the breakthrough, the essential role of emotion, the wisdom of deep reading, the science of affirmations, the architecture of daily discipline, and the supreme practice of living inside a great question. Each of these is, at its core, an expression of the same truth. Repetition is not a technique. It is the path. Bob Proctor did not give the world a complicated system. He gave it a mirror. He spent 60 years standing on stages, in living rooms, and on television screens around the world, holding up the same mirror to the same truth, and asking people to be willing to look until they finally saw themselves in it. Not the self they had been, the self they were capable of becoming. Every book he read 100 times, every affirmation he spoke with conviction, every morning discipline he kept, without exception. These were not things he did to build a career. They were things he did to build a life. And the extraordinary life he built was the evidence that the teaching was true. You now hold this understanding, not as information, as a seed. The only question that remains is this: will you plant it once, admire it briefly, and move on to the next idea? Or will you return to it? Will you water it? Will you give it the one thing that turns a seed into a harvest time? Consistency, and the willingness to show up again and again, even when the ground appears unchanged. Bob Proctor's answer to that question was always the same, delivered with a smile and a certainty that came from a man who had lived every word he ever spoke. Plant the seed, water it every day, and never, ever stop.